We knew about it all along. They didn't mount a campaign to save it. They didn't have whoever might have had the wherewithal didn't apply it to that. And so maybe part of the message here, and mere speculation on my part, is that if the private sector was unable to or unwilling to save it, who are we as a county to run to the rescue? And I'm only saying that simply because I heard a private sector person say, hey, we knew all about it, and they were willing to go to the auction. So maybe we aren't all on the same page on something like that. And you know, part of what I think the county, for better or worse, can do is bring people together, facilitate discussions, etc. That's not economic development. That may be a means towards other people putting together economic development. But we're under no illusion that that in itself is economic development. And if that's not sufficient to the day, then we really need to look at what the county actually can do. And this is exactly the kind of discussion that I was hoping we could have. If I could just enter two more things into the discussion, and then I'll back off and you can talk about whatever you want. One is current activities in economic and community development by supervisorial district. This is not necessarily an exhaustive list. The reason we put that together is kind of an example of things that, with our current staffing and with the direction we think we've received from the board to date, these are the kind of activities in which we've been able to engage. And you'll see it's a lot of going to meetings, pulling people together, facilitating a discussion, maybe accessing federal or state grants or whatever. You are not going to see any actual financing, direct financing in here, because that is simply not a tool that the county has at its disposal. And if your determination is that we need to, then quite frankly, that's a whole different discussion. And we have to figure out how you get those resources. So the other point of this was to show that there's activity in all of the districts. The other point of this is to show in some cases there have been board votes on some of these individual items to support or whatever. But the board has not said, okay, we want you to put together a grant application with Dagwood Mills, for example. We're going along thinking that that is something that would work towards economic development. If they can refinance some of their loans, then they can retain jobs and make some other things happen. But it kind of gets back to the other thing of what's happening in each district and what has the board as a whole endorsed, and what are we doing with individual board members, which I think is something, quite frankly, you all need to address, and what your comfort level is with how far we go working with individual supervisors on a county-wide strategy around economic development. So that's this. And then the list of potential strategies for economic development, and that's all it is. It's kind of a laundry list. At the suggestion of Don Ballard and Tom Becker from EDFC, I did add at the end, and it's business incentives. Consider the possibility of local incentives for business retention and protection. That brings up a whole other issue, but that does get into the arena of looking at financing and looking at resources. So I think if you look at your discussion as a board about what is the appropriate role of the county, what is the appropriate role of the executive office in forwarding the county's strategies in this area, part of it is what are your resources. And right now, our only resource, for better or worse, is staff time. And so if we can use that to try and keep the message in front of people, provide some data, make some connections around some grants, that's what we're doing right now. If there's something else you want done, then we need to match resources to what it is that you want done. And I think it also needs to reflect a countywide strategy. So to me, this is the perfect time to discuss it. And, our goal has been to provide you with the background materials, but it's ultimately a policy discussion that you as a board need to have. And I don't expect this thing to get finished today. But if we can open it and get it going today, then I'll have felt that this hour and a half is somewhat worthwhile. I'm not going to go a whole hog because you probably wouldn't do it. Anyway. So.
Thank you, Supervisor.
I don't want to belabor this fact of the Branscombe Mill. Actually,
Mendocino County, on behalf of the CEO's office, Tom, and especially Steve, done everything they can under this. My point is here, I don't want to see this same scenario play out again in this county. And you're right, Allison, County of Mendocino don't really have the ability or legality of coming up with a block of money to do that. But we're a member of EDFC and these other organizations that do. And they, you know, that's really what they are. If everything's going smoothly, you really don't need an EDFC or any of these, or West Company or any of these organizations. I mean, but when things go into a kind of a problem with a business, it happens in a short period. And we need to somehow get these agencies or these to where they can react and be able to react to a figure, like I say, a $3 million business isn't what you would necessarily call a huge business in this county. It may be a motel that we feel that we need to have in an area. It may be a restaurant and convention center or something. It may even be a public sector facility or something that we feel is really needed in this county. I just don't want to see what has the scenario that just happened to where we have our hands tied and we need to be more in a reactive mood in a short, what I call a short time frame, is 2 to 3 months. Sure, if you have a year or two to react, then you can go out and you look for federal loans or even private loans. But when you have a crisis in business happens on a short